So Venus here will square the North Node and the South Node on Tuesday, March 9th, about 6 p.m. here in Central Europe. This is what we call Venus at the South bending. That is to say, this square or cross relationship with the lunar nodes. It's an interesting aspect. It's one that is can be slept on sometimes. But it's the closing of a cycle here. Each of the planets have a cycle with the lunar nodes. And the lunar nodes are so important because they're the eclipse points. They're the points where our reality gets wonky. The kind of keys of the programming expose themselves for these moments twice a year, with usually 2 eclipses, sometimes 3 eclipses per eclipse season. And so when a planet squares the nodes, Venus will be at what we call the south bending. It's applying to the north node. So it's the closing square in Venus's cycle with the nodes. But this south bending point is associated with Ketu. And when the moon comes up from being below the ecliptic and it comes up above the ecliptic, that moment here is the north node, right? The increasing node. The moon's position vis-a-vis the ecliptic is above the ecliptic after the moon crosses the north node. And when it crosses the south node, the moon comes down and is then below the ecliptic. That's why we associate this closing square with the south node. We call it the south bending. It's associated with Ketu. Ketu is the tail of the snake. The main way I focus on Ketu is just asceticism, spirituality. It's very much a 12th house energy where you are isolated, separated, challenged, maybe things are stripped away, and we're left with ourselves and then our spiritual practice as a means to function, as a means to survive. I don't know if you've ever been on like a silent meditation retreat. I've done many. I highly recommend them. But that's part of that practice, is that you don't have anything. You take vows of silence, you take vows of celibacy, and you take vows of non-attachment to things. Everything's very simplified so the focus can be placed on the spiritual practice, the sitting meditation, the walking meditation, the chanting, the mala, the japa. This is the nature of Ketu. We strip away, we don't look out into the world, and we focus on the inside. Now with Venus being the planet here at the south bending, I think it's a lovely combination, particularly for this week when Venus is in Pisces, ruled by Jupiter, the planet of religion and maybe God in a way. Venus here, it's almost like we can find our efficient strategies to celebrate the divine in our lives. The thing is here, both Rahu and Ketu are in Venus's Egyptian term, and so it's a doubling up theme here. Venus is the planet on the south bending, and then Rahu and Ketu are ruled by Venus by term. So there's something here that the sky wants us to look at in terms of how do we beautify our spiritual space? How do we make that space not with extraneous objects that might distract us from the godly side of things, but beautified, functional beauty, so that we can place the attention on the task at hand, which is to seek the divine, connect to the divine. And I think here about the beauty of the monastic life, the simplicity of Zen art. Have you ever seen that? Or Mark Rothko's paintings, very much kind of Zen inspired art. That calligraphy with those circles that you see in the Zen painting tradition. Rothko just has like a canvas of the same color, then with like one red line, one red rectangle that's kind of like a stroke. But this idea of stripping away and giving our beauty, letting the essential nature of something emerge when we tear away and decrease, like I said, that fluff or that pompous kind of extraneous, the superfluous adornment. Let's take that away here. I think that is what this transit and this week is really asking us to do, the astrology this week. I think about like Burmese monks. I don't know if you've ever seen pictures of them. They're in that saffron, that color saffron in their robes. And so there's a beauty, but it's simplistic, only one outfit. You wear your robes, you have your bowl, you make your alms round. And so there's this kind of Venus, this way that the connection can be made, the offering to the divine through that simplified adornment. So think about in your life, what are you doing this week? Maybe you, put your hair up or do things more simply. Spend less time kind of with the puffing up of the self, or that, we all love to look in the mirror, but maybe staring too long. Maybe we try to decrease that a little bit this week and just get more focused on prayer life, whatever you do for spiritual practice. Maybe you kind of figure out how to get your altar maybe a little bit more clarified, maybe one item that you can really focus on this week, or one picture of something. Sometimes these altar spaces, they just get so filled up with things that maybe it's distracting. So this Venus south bending conjunction is a chance to, I think, strip away and clarify the kind of features of our space and the spiritual spaces that we use to engage in our spiritual life. And if you're an atheist, you think about things like, what do you do to connect? I mean, what are you doing to feel connected to yourself and to your power and to your mind and the powers, that I guess are more computer-like, if that's your worldview. But those powers you have, there's techniques you can do to connect to that. And so it's sort of the same thing. How are you connecting to yourself so that you can offer what you have to the world, the gifts you've been given to the world? And then the other thing I just say here, Neptune is very close to this conjunction. So Neptune is right in the 21st degree of Pisces, 20 degrees Pisces. That's very close to about 5 degrees away from where Venus will be here. And Neptune rules Pisces. In the modern system, Neptune is that great dissipated energy where you have Saturn, which is the final border of our reality, that final fence. You get on the other side of Saturn and you start getting into these dissipated energetics where it's very dark and maybe we can't even see, maybe we even lose sight of our bodies. This is the kind of Neptunian energy that can emerge. I think about 2001: A Space Odyssey, when Dave Bowman was in that final moment, went through a kind of wormhole or portal. He, on the moons of Jupiter, but still you can see that scene where the colors start changing. He starts changing form. I mean, it can be a very strange energy when you start getting Neptune involved. That's brought here and included here in this moment with Venus at the south bending. We're in between the two syzygies here in the mutable axis, squaring the nodes. So we're right in between eclipses, these two eclipse season cycles. It's a reminder anytime we hit the bendings with the sun or with these personal planets, really any planet, that the eclipses are coming. They're coming here, May and June, and the eclipses will come shake us up. I mean, that's what they do. It's the divine's way of coming into the reality and making sure we sort of are moving forward, so it can take things away. It can bring things to us, where there's a hint of that here. There's a flavor of that. While the sun is very close to the bending, the south bending, and Venus perfects that south bending here on Tuesday. This particular moment we're in is so connected to Gemini, where that solar eclipse will be. The only solar eclipse in Gemini, this whole cycle of eclipses in Gemini, there's only one solar eclipse. That is coming up in June. You've got Mars there now. Mars is hitting that energy, that Gemini part of our charts, with the North Node in this square relationship to Venus. Venus is in earlier position. The south bending of Venus is now in earlier position, but I still think it's a lovely opportunity to use the Mars for this moment this week that's calling to us and saying, get spiritual, connect to the divine, connect to the Neptune. That's the great thing about Neptune. I find it to be it can be a really shocking energy, but once we surrender and release into it, it really wants to take us places, just like Dave Bowman in 2001: A Space Odyssey. He gets taken into that room, that very strange sense of time not being real. He's old, then he becomes a star child, right? Reborn in this seed of a great rebirth of energy. So Neptune can do that if we release and let go into it. And with Mars there, we might develop strategies. So you can do things like whatever your routines are for spirituality, make sure you're trying to do them this week. Bring a little bit of effort, a little bit more effort if you can, into connecting with these unseen forces, the forces of spirit. And then this is the final point. Venus being exalted in Pisces is very much that love, which is Venus, of God, which could be Jupiter. And that Piscean mutable water energy with Neptune there is again calling us toward these kind of higher realms. So I think love of these higher realms, an open heart. The heart searches for God. The heart wants to be filled up with the spiritual energy. And that's what the exalted Venus can often be about. I think of the Ecstasy of Saint Teresa, that great Bernini sculpture in Rome. I've been fortunate enough to see it, where she's almost in a sexual release with the divine. And that's what this Venus being exalted in Pisces can do here. So it's all, again, a very spiritual symbol set right now, this week, early in the week, and then we get this new moon coming that really locks in this energy. So get spiritual, get in touch with your unseen self and the unseen forces that are there for you to help you and to benefit you.